Why does the one who adores you most suddenly vanish right when your heart aches for them? Love isn't always sweet whispers. Love isn't forever about undivided attention. At times, love manifests as stillness. At times, it manifests as distance. Frequently, the individual who treasures you deeply is the one who withdraws, who remains hushed, and who appears distant precisely when you crave their closeness. You linger there, questioning if they genuinely cherish you. Why the withdrawal? If they value you, why the icy demeanor? If I'm vital to them, why behave as if I'm invisible? The explanation isn't simple, yet it's not cruel either. When a person overlooks you despite profound affection, it typically boils down to two hidden motives, two terrors that dominate the human soul. Let's examine them one by one. First, the dread of erasing their essence within you. Love holds immense force. When a person tumbles deeply for someone, their emotions cease to be solely theirs. Abruptly, their happiness hinges on your temperament. Their serenity relies on your presence. Their entire day rises and falls according to your notice. That intensity can overwhelm. Picture yourself beneath a massive cascade. Initially, it seems invigorating, potent, and thrilling, but linger too long, and it begins to submerge you. That's how intense love strikes someone unprepared to surrender to it. So what do they choose? They retreat. They overlook you. They forge distance not because their affection wanes, but because it surges too fiercely. The reasoning fueling this dread is what specialists term the terror of engulfment. It arises when affection looms so vast that someone frets they'll forfeit their core self amid it. They dread forfeiting autonomy. They dread turning overly vulnerable to pain. They dread that total surrender means they'll forget their identity apart from you. Thus, they wield quietude as armor. They disregard your messages, they evade your gaze, they remain mute. Not due to lacking thoughts of you, but from harboring them excessively. Their quietude isn't a denial, it's a method to safeguard themselves. Here's its appearance in everyday scenarios. They spot your message instantly, yet delay hours before responding, not from indifference, but from dreading revealing too much too soon. They dodge eye contact amid crowds, but once you glance elsewhere, they can't cease staring at you. They limit conversation to brevity, yet in your absence, they replay your phrases mentally. It's like they're instructing themselves to hold back and avoid excessive proximity. Don't stray from your path, yet each retreat brims with yearning for you. Each ignored message holds covert worth. Each hush teems with reflections on you. Distancing turns into their means of gasping since the affection weighs so heavily upon their soul. Second, the dread of forfeiting you permanently. Now, consider the alternate cause. Occasionally, folks overlook you not for self-preservation but to safeguard the link. This involves the terror of abandonment, the terror of forfeiting the singular individual they can't envision existence without. When a person genuinely adores you, their insecurities amplify. They ponder, what if they're inadequate? What if you depart someday? What if my affection exceeds theirs? This dread prompts withdrawal. They overlook you not from disinterest, but from desiring you intensely. They assume that excessive closeness exposes their flaws. They believe displaying vulnerability prompts you to view them as frail. They fret that unveiling their affection's depth might prompt your flight. So they conceal, they linger behind a barrier of hush. They feign detachment while their spirit blazes. The reasoning fueling this dread is tied to insecurity within bonds. Individuals harboring this dread view affection as fragile, fleeting. So, rather than hazarding forfeiture, they pretend apathy. Yet inwardly, they care immensely. They're overanalyzing, replaying each phrase you uttered and fretting over each subdued tone in your speech. Distancing evolves into their peculiar method of clinging. They figure, if I remain distant, perhaps I won't frighten them away. If I feign resilience, perhaps they won't detect my terror of forfeiture. But naturally, affection can't remain concealed eternally. Their gaze betrays reality. Their physique betrays reality. Their essence betrays reality. The tug of war in affection is something you've likely observed. Those who overlook you most frequently display abrupt flares of tenderness. One day silent, the next overflowing with compassion. One instant dodging your glance, the next unable to avert their stare. This fluctuation isn't confusion. It's affection trapped amid dual terrors. The dread of erasing themselves in you and the dread of forfeiting you completely. They oscillate between these poles, and drawn by desire and repelled by terror, This reveals their hush stems from affection. Hush can signify various things, but when distancing arises from affection, it resonates distinctly. Seek these subtle indicators. First, their vibe shifts upon your entry. Even sans speech, you sense their attention pivot to you. Second, they evade you, yet observe you. They may avoid conversing, but they note your attire, your mood, and the minute particulars. Third, their hush is anxious, not indifferent. They appear fidgety amid stillness, not at ease. Fourth, they invariably return ignoring phases. They devise minor pretexts to converse anew. Fifth, their gaze narrates the tale. Truth resides eternally in the gaze. Someone can conceal phrases but not their stare. How to respond when someone overlooks you due to affection? The impulse is pursuing them, issues. But frequently this drives them farther. Instead, reply with forbearance. Grant space, yet remain present. Demonstrate reliability so they grasp affection isn't a snare or peril. Be compassionate since terror lurks behind their hush. The optimal method to halt this pattern is fostering security. Assure them that adoring you won't erase their essence. You won't abandon them merely for revealing humanity. Affection can be secure. Affection can be reliable. Affection can be sanctuary. Closing reflection. So why does the one who adores you profoundly overlook you extensively? It's due to dual terrors. First, the dread of erasing themselves in you. Second, the dread of forfeiting you completely. Both terrors stem from affection, not indifference. Both hushes are pleas for aid, not dismissals. Affection at its peak terrifies. It compels flight despite yearning to linger. It compels quietude despite yearning to speak. But recall this, when someone genuinely adores you, even their hushed instants brim with your essence. Even their remoteness is a form of proximity. Even their hush isn't absence, it's affection trembling behind a barrier of terror. If this resonated, kindly like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for your support. When a person begins emerging from behind that terror barrier, the progression is gradual. It won't occur instantly. You may observe them dipping toes tentatively. They could dispatch a brief message following days of hush, or reveal a minor idea typically concealed. This represents a massive leap for them. It's their method of gauging if reality remains secure. They're verifying if you're still present, exhibiting identical forbearance shown during their absence. If you respond with fury or insist on explanations for their whereabouts, they'll probably withdraw into seclusion again. But if you greet them with tenderness, you demonstrate affection as firm terrain, not unstable dunes. The path from hush to expression concerns forging trust. This individual must grasp that proximity to you doesn't equate to dissolution. They must witness that bearing their spirit doesn't equate to shattering. You serve as their reflection. When you remain serene and reliable, you illustrate their terrors as mere illusions. Gradually, ignoring intervals will diminish. Abrupt tenderness surges will endure longer. The remoteness forged for security will contract, since they comprehend sanctuary isn't where they forfeit themselves, but where they're ultimately discovered. It's equally vital for you to recall your value amid this period. Comprehending their terror doesn't require self-harm. You can establish gentle limits. You can express appreciation for their solitude while prizing dialogue. When duo transition from terror's realm to security's, the affection strengthens far beyond prior levels. It evolves from untamed, daunting entity into profound, serene union. Hush ceases being armor for concealment. It transforms into tranquil area you cohabit. If you're the one overlooking your beloved, attempt one minor venture today. Utter one sincere statement. Dispatch one basic note. No need to relinquish entire essence immediately. Merely crack the portal slightly. You'll discover the individual awaiting opposite isn't aiming to ensnare or critique you, but to accompany you. Affection terrifies solely until you grasp. Solitary bearing isn't mandatory. Grasping these terrors marks merely the initial phase. The subsequent is mastering, bridging the chasm between their hush and your spirit. When you're awaiting, hush can weigh oppressively. But your handling dictates if the barrier persists or collapses. You must grasp. Forcing terror's cessation is impossible. Terror resembles a portal unlockable solely internally. If you tug them nearer excessively, they'll sense that control forfeiture they dread intensely. They'll conclude their essence is genuinely overtaken, prompting swifter flight. The key is embodying perpetual radiance. Envision a beacon. It doesn't pursue vessels or shout for approach. It merely holds position, beaming consistently, illuminating the path to land. When you're reliable and serene, you offer secure haven for docking when exhaustion from fleeing sets in. You illustrate your affection isn't tempest for drowning, but haven for respite. This addresses handling self-loss terror. You demonstrate coexistence with you preserves their individuality. But regarding their forfeiture terror, this demands alternate nurturing. This individual hushes since they deem themselves defective or insufficient. They assume bearing genuine spirit prompts eventual departure rationale. To assist, provide modest, sincere reassurance fragments. Grand displays aren't essential. Simply demonstrate permanence. Inform them you value their subdued resilience. Inform them your availability whenever prepared. When they observe hush didn't repel you, they commence grasping presence won't repel you either. Gradually, dynamics shift. The individual formerly delaying hours for message response might commence answering swiftly. The individual evading gaze might commence sustaining stare briefly extended. These signify monumental triumphs. They mark a spirit mastering trust. It's the instant affection overpowers terror. They cease viewing you as autonomy hazard and commence viewing you as sole companion. They cease viewing affection as forfeiture hazard and commence viewing it as tranquility acquisition. Ultimately, affection is dialogue transpiring sans utterances. If ensnared in this loop presently harbor optimism, their overlooking from affection implies the flame remains vibrantly active. It's merely veiled beneath safeguarding stratum. Through sustained forbearance, compassion and authenticity, you aid stratum removal. You transition from overlooking agony to genuine recognition splendor. You grasp supreme affection tales aren't initial ease ones, but duo electing persistence till terror ultimately dissipates. When hush ultimately shatters, fresh journey segment commences. This marks instant barriers commence disintegrating and authentic union occurs. It's frequently fragile period since the concealing individual now stands exposed. They've resolved to cease overlooking and confront evaded sentiments. This shift may prove chaotic. They could exhibit heightened sensitivity or occasional withdrawal traces. It resembles individual relearning ambulation post prolonged immobility. You must extend hand sends excessive tugging. This union's mending transpires via secure shared instance. You commence supplanting former cold recollections with fresh tenderness ones. Rather than pondering hush causes, you commence savoring their tone. You discover formerly terrorized topics now foster proximity. They commence divulging aspirations, their history, and precise motives for necessitated distancing. When vocalizing terrors forfeit potency, and divulge terror halves and via attentiveness, you assist shoulder burden relief. You'll additionally observe personal transformation amid this progression. You grasp your value never hinged on their notice. You recognize possessed fortitude for awaiting and spirit for comprehending complexity. This matures the bond. It's no longer merely novel romance thrill. It's enduring alliance's profound foundations. You've jointly endured hush, implying near anything survivability. Trust sprouting from this strife exceeds untested trust profoundly. Now direct gaze forward. Bond transcending overlooking loop becomes authentic expansion venue. You duo grasp space's healthiness and solitude differing from isolation. They grasp retaining personal existence while wholly yours. You grasp their brief hush necessity signals no departure. You cultivate wordless dialect. Mutual check in resembling embrace over confinement. Ultimate objective is attaining utter tranquility. Here overlooking halts entirely absent shield necessity. Self-lost terror vanishes since you foster their expansion. Your lost terror vanishes since you've demonstrated fidelity. Remaining is affection honest, exposed, and liberated, its affection needless of wall concealment, its affection ultimately arriving sanctuary durably. This rewards every forbearance and hushed day. You've transformed barrier into span. As union expands, you'll observe interspace no longer void, but span. If the individual formerly wielding hush as barrier now wields it for repose, they cease necessitating your repulsion for personal respiration. They comprehend proximity preserves individuality. This marks instant engulfment terror by affection ultimately morphs into sustenance comfort by it. They cease viewing presence as autonomy threat and commence viewing it as expansion sanctuary. You'll additionally observe your lost terror commencing transformation. Rather than withdrawing for hurt evasion, they commence inclining for bond fortification. They comprehend cold feigning protects no bond, it merely forges undesired remoteness. They commence revealing authentic self, including deemed frail or chaotic segments. When accepting San's departure, their abandonment terror commences dissipation. They grasp your affection isn't perpetual victory prize, but enduring gift amid imperfection. This transformation alters mutual dialogue. You transition from hush interpretation guessing to candid sentiment discussions. If solitude moment needed, they verbalize over vanishing. If isolation sensed, you express San's entrapment sensation. This candor glues totality. It halts guessing loop and substitutes with knowing tranquility. Team status, combating terrors over mutual combat. This phase's splendor is affection's steadiness. No longer thrill, descent coaster, but serene stream unidirectional. You've duo-navigated human spirit's toughest segments. You've confronted profoundest terrors and elected persistence. This forges respect level most never attain. You grasp hard times recurrence equips handling. You've demonstrated affection surpasses self-protective barriers. Ultimately, overlooking error retrospection views it as educational span. It tested imparting you forbearance and them trust. It forged bond, refining blaze. Now savor blaze warmth sans burn terror. You've discovered dual distinct individuals also flawlessly united. The former overlooker now hears you amid quietude. You're ultimately where affection sources power over terror. Upon attaining profound comprehension stage, you commence viewing affection not as conquest battle but nurtured garden. The former silent individual now grasps heart, sharing soul health maintenance. They cease sensing self versus you choice necessity. They view you as soul encourager of wholeness. This epiphany alters totality. Terror's oppressive burden lifts, replaced by liberation's buoyancy. They ultimately respire freely amid presence knowing no alteration or possession attempt. This fresh security permits duo-doubt, unclouded future planning. You commence constructing existence where hushed instants fill with tranquility over anxiety. Upon one quieting, other refrains panic. You grasp hush mere life rhythm component, no impending calamity indicator. You've mastered mutual soul reading permitting unspoken affection sensing. This supreme union form where utterance is mere enhancement and presence authentic dialect. You additionally grasp forgiveness significance for fear lost duration. You avoid overlooking days retrospection with resentment or fury view with grace sense. You acknowledge those instance growth necessities. They shadowed, intensifying sunlight warmth. Forgiving history prevents present infiltration. You elect focusing present standing individual. The individual electing deepest anxiety conquest for proximity. Bond now sources strength for life's remainder via stable affectionate foundation. Outer world confidence heightens. The former self-lost terrorizer now discovers actual strength via you. And you discover forbearance capacity rendered wiser, empathetic individual. You've duo improved via this hushed traversal. You've transformed challenging circumstance into trust masterpiece. This ultimate verity regarding fear surviving affection. It turns indestructible. Its link traversing obscurity locating illumination. You're no longer mere duo adoring mutually. You're duo mastering persistence artistry. You grasp life's hurlings yield partner fleeing not, shutting not. You have found the kind,